All right. Lie number one. The Quran lies to Muhammad and says, never did we send a messenger or a prophet before you, but when he did recite the revelation or narrated or spoke, Shaitan, Muhammad's father, threw some falsehood in it. Now I'm going to give you the historical background of this. It's called the Satanic verses. A huge embarrassment for Muslims who try to lie and say this never happened. However, a Muslim scholar who died not too long ago spent considerable amount of time carefully sifting and examining every single narration he could find on the Satanic verses, and he did a PhD on it and on what Ibn Taymiyyah said, and wrote a book, a must-have book. Now, by the way, brother, if you can get a hold of that book, send it to me, bro. It's by, what was his name? I quote him at length in my articles. He was a Muslim. He documents there are over 30 reports, many of them deemed to be what's called Sahih Mursal. You ready to learn? That show that the earliest version of the story was that when Muhammad recited Surah An-Najm, chapter 53, verses 19 and 20, where the three daughters of Allah are mentioned, Banat, Allah, right? Allat, Al-Uzza, Manat, the third, the other. That Muhammad originally said, listen to this, originally said, these are high-flying cranes whose intercession is to be sought after. Let me explain the background, guys. Muhammad praised the pagan goddesses worshipped by the pagan Arabs and acknowledged they exist and they intercede for the pagans. The earliest sources, earliest versions say Muhammad recited the verses because Satan deceived him into thinking these verses came from Gabriel, and he recited them thinking they're from Gabriel. It says all the pagans were in awe and exclaimed, Muhammad has praised our goddesses. They bowed with him in worship and accepted his religion because he acknowledged their goddesses. Huge embarrassment. Okay, are you listening to the historical background? Now remember, this Muslim scholar documented over 30, more like 50 sources. And the earliest sources, because as time went on, the story changed and became embellished and elaborated. But he documents that the earliest version of the story, and many of them come from Sahih chains, meaning from people in the chain deemed to be reliable, trustworthy, but they're called Sahih Mursal chains, which some scholars accept. The original version is Satan inspired Muhammad to recite these verses without Muhammad realizing they're from Satan. Gabriel came, rebuked him. Muhammad felt guilty and embarrassed, and then recanted and changed the verses, and the pagans became more upset at him. Okay, you understand the gist of the story? Do you know who defended the historicity of the story and said that there are too many chains, too many versions of the story for it to be fake? This is known as the Satanic verses. Even David Wood did an excellent debate on this with Adnan Rashid, which you can find. And David Wood went through the sources. In my estimation, David Wood smoked Adnan Rashid. Right? Okay, now you can go watch that debate. And David Wood was using the research of this Muslim, and I'm going to show you the book in a minute. Thank you, brother. I just saw your text. Yep. Go to Christian Winger, pay him Christian Wagner, pay him $500 so you can get a share in his apostolate, which is going nowhere. All right. Anyway, coming back to the issue. Oh, he does that too. Yeah, Rob Christian does a lot on this. Go to Rob Christian. He doesn't get enough attention, this poor brother. Go and watch it. Now, do you know one of the greatest defenders of this story? Someone who defended the story saying it has to be true because he says there are too many chains and versions for the story to be a lie. Did you know who defended it and tried to use it to prove that Muhammad is a prophet? You guys, you know who defended? Let me shock you. Yep. Yeah, Christian Winger, sorry. Do you know who one of the greatest defenders of the satanic versions happens to be? Anybody? Can someone give me a name? Come on, guys. Rumble? Anyone? No, Shibir Ali. No. Anybody else? You need to listen to this. This is a nightmare. It's an embarrassment. Sheikhul Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. If you don't know who Ibn Taymiyyah is, Ibn Taymiyyah wrote about 700 years after, yeah, you got it, 700 years after the death of Muhammad, and he's considered one of the greatest scholars by Salafi Muslims, such as Sheikh Asim al-Hakim, even, what's his name? Yasser Qadi loves him. Yasser Qadi loves him, but he disagrees with him. He actually argued there are too many chains, too many versions of the story to be fake. It must be true, and it actually proves that Muhammad is a prophet who's guarded. You see the warped logic? You see the sick logic? He argued this actually vindicates Muhammad. How? Notice that Gabriel came right away and rebuked him, saying that's from Satan. That is proof that Allah will always protect his prophet either from making a mistake or correct him after he makes a mistake, showing he's a true prophet. That was the logic of Ibn Taymiyyah. You with me there? That was the logic of Ibn Taymiyyah. The fact that Muhammad admitted those verses were from Satan and that Gabriel rebuked him shows his honesty and shows that Allah will not allow him to be deceived, but will correct him. That was his logic. But I'm going to show you why that logic doesn't work. Okay, now that I gave you the background, and I'll show you the name of the book and the author in a minute. Now, brother, if you can send it to me, Divine Mercy, the High Flying Cranes. I know his name is, I think, Shahab Ahmed. He passed away shortly after the book, because I would love to copy and paste from the book and produce posts so you don't have to buy the book. Okay, now, never did we send a messenger or prophet before you, but when he did recite the revelation or narrated or spoke, Shaitan threw some falsehood in it. Now notice the lie. When Muhammad felt depressed for reciting verses from Satan, Allah, his Satan, comforted him saying, don't worry about it, Muhammad. You're not the first one. You're not the first one. All right? There hasn't been a prophet or a messenger before you that didn't make that mistake. Notice the lie. Every messenger and prophet was deceived, duped by Satan to narrate the words of Satan. So Muhammad isn't the first, nor was he, well, supposedly he's going to be the last, because last prophet. But Allah abolishes that which Shaitan throws in. Then Allah establishes his revelations. And Allah is all knower, all wise, that he may make what is thrown in by Shaitan a trial for those in whose hearts is a disease of hypocrisy and disbelief, and whose hearts are hardened. Now what it means is, Allah allowed, yep, that is it. You got it, brother. Shahab Ahmed. That's the book, brother. Okay, now, listen to this, crystals. According to this, Allah allows Satan to inspire prophets and messengers to recite the words of Satan, thinking they're the words of God, and then God will then come and correct that mistake, inform them those are Satan's words, so that the people who heard those words will either get angry and turn away, from the faith, or will be strengthened in their faith because they'll see, wow, so God made sure to protect you and reveal to you these verses from some Satan. See the logic of the Quran? See the logic of the Quran? Thank you, brother. Now I'm going to be quoting a lot of juicy quotes from the book. See how this brother is helping me to save money? Can you see right there? Note, according to the Quran, to come from Muhammad, all the prophets and messengers made his mistake. They were all deceived in reciting Satan's words, unbeknownst to them, and then Allah came and revealed to them, those are not from me, they're from Satan, and removes those words. See the lie? And whose hearts are hardened. Certainly the Zalimun, polytheists, and wrongdoers are in opposition far off from the truth against Allah's messenger believers. Now, according to the Muslim commentators, why did Allah send down chapter 22, verse 52, 53? Here you go. Tafsir al-Jalalain. Tafsir al-Jalalain. Right here, I'm quoting, so no one thinks I'm lying. Let's see. You ready? Why was this sent down? Now remember, these are Muslims. They're not Christians. They're not Jews. They're Muslims. Why would they make up a story making Muhammad look so evil and stupid and compromised? Okay, now, Rumble, you catching it? Exactly, Aristophan. Here you go, brother. Yeah, go ahead, David. Send the link to the book. Give it to them, man. And we did not send before any messenger, Rasul, that this is a prophet who's been commanded to deliver a message, or prophet, Nabi, one who has not been commanded to deliver anything, but that when he recited the scripture, Satan cast into his recitation what is not from the Quran, but which those to whom he, the prophet, had been sent would find pleasing. See that? So Satan inspires a prophet to mix in the words of God with the words of Satan to please the unbelievers. The prophet had, during an assembly of the men of Quraysh, after reciting the following verses from Surah An-Najm, the chapter of the star, 53, have you considered Lat and Uzza, Manat, the third one, added as a result of Satan casting them onto his tongue without his, the prophets, being aware of it, the following words? So then Satan put on the tongue of Muhammad. Muhammad then repeated those words. So who took over Muhammad's tongue? Satan. Who inspired Muhammad's tongue? Satan. Who spoke the words of Satan? Muhammad. Okay. Those are the high-flying cranes, al-Kharanid al-Ula, and indeed their intercession is to be hoped for. And so they, the men of Quraysh, were thereby delighted. Gabriel, however, later informed him, the prophet of this, that Satan had cast unto his tongue, and he's grieved by it. What does this tell you about Muhammad? That Satan controlled Muhammad's mouth to then spew the words of Satan, with Muhammad being oblivious, thinking these are the words of God. You with me there? Okay. But was subsequently comforted with the following verse, that he might be reassured of God's pleasure thereat. God abrogates, nullifies whatever Satan had cast, then God confirms his revelations. And God is knower of Satan's casting of that which has been mentioned, wise and is enabling him, Satan, to do such things, for he does whatever he will. Now, how about this one here? Tafsir Jalalain in verse 53, that he may make what Satan has cast a trial, a test for those in whose hearts is a sickness, dissension, and hypocrisy, and those whose hearts are hardened, namely the idolaters, hardened against acceptance of the truth. For truly the evildoers, the disbelievers, are steeped in extreme defiance. Now watch. In a protracted feud, they were constantly fighting Muhammad, opposing Muhammad with the prophet, and the believers, for his tongue, Muhammad's tongue, uttered mention of their gods in a way that pleased them, yet this was later nullified, which got them angry. They're like, wait, 1 minute you're praising our gods and our goddesses. Next minute, you're saying that was a mistake. Satan deceived you, and our goddesses are evil. Make up your mind already. You see it? Why they're like upset and living with this guy? Make up your mind already, man. One day you praise our gods and goddesses. Next day you're telling us our gods and goddesses are false. Dude, we're getting fed up with you. See that? All right, let me quote Asbab al-Nuzul. Ali ibn Ahmad al-Wahdi. Why was 2253 sent down? Ready? And then we're going to go into the point. Listening? Crystals, everyone else? And you're going to see how this is going to bury Muhammad and the Quran. Even without the satanic verses, 2252 is a lie. Never sent we a messenger or prophet before thee. The commentators of the Quran said, when the Messenger of Allah saw that his people were shunning him, look, they were turning their backs on him. He was aggrieved by the rejection of the message he brought them, and he secretly wished that Allah reveal something to him which would bring him and his people closer to each other. You see that? He was getting depressed. So he's hoping Allah would say something to make the people love him. Why? Narcissist. Narcissist, right? See the narcissist? He wants to be loved. He wants to be praised. He wants to be the center of attention. And narcissism is demonic. It's from the pit of hell. Only God can save you from it. Keen as he was to see them accept faith, one day he sat in one of the congregations of Quraysh, which attracted a huge number of its members, and he wished that Allah does not reveal to him on that day anything that he might repel them from him. See? He doesn't want Allah to tell him stuff to get the people to hate him anymore. Can I watch? Allah revealed to him then Surah An-Najm, Najm the star. The Messenger of Allah recited, but when he reached this part, have you thought upon Alat, Al-Uzza, Manat, the third, the other? The devil put on his tongue what he had secretly wished and hoped for and said, do you see it? Candid admission. Muhammad simply manifested what he was already feeling in his heart. Muhammad already had this desire in his heart to appease the pagans by speaking of their gods in a positive light so they could love him and follow him and submit to him. You guys see it? You guys not checking out on me, are you? Rumble? Right? Okay. So what does he quote? These are the mighty cranes, Kharanik, and their intercession is hoped for. When the Quraysh heard this, they were pleased. The Messenger of Allah carried on reciting until the end of the surah and then prostrated. All the Muslims followed suit and prostrated, and the idolaters who were present prostrated too. Okay, watch how bad it gets. All those who were present, whether Muslim or disbeliever, prostrated, except Al-Walid ibn al-Mughira and Abu Sayyid ibn al-As. Sayyid, son of the ass. That's what al-As means, the ass. Who were too advanced in age and could not prostrate, but they both grabbed a handful of dust and put their foreheads on it. The Quraysh dispersed, happy with what they heard. They said, Muhammad has mentioned our idols with complimentary terms. He's praised our goddesses. Sister, quit and walk by faith. We know that Allah gives life and takes it away. He creates and provides sustenance, But these idols of ours will intercede for us with him. Now that Muhammad had associated with them, now that Muhammad has associated them, we are all with him. Now we're going to follow him. That evening, guys, watch. That evening, Gabriel went to the Messenger of Allah and said, what have you done? You recited to people that which I did not bring from Allah, and what you said what I did not say to you. Damn, Gina. Now we got problems, Houston, because if you go here, I did a post where I quoted only the Sahih sound chains. But I'm going to explain what Mursal is in a minute. So if you go in the search and you put Mursal, oh, sorry, not this. Search engine, dude. You put in M-U-R-S-A-L, Mursal. All right. Mursal. You're going to find an article I wrote on Mursal Hadiths. Just put in Mursal and come up. And just go down until you find it. Right? Just keep finding. I'll show you. High flying cranes, Muhammad's satanic inspiration. That's the article we're going to look at in a minute. Just go until you find it, Mursal Hadith. But now let's go to the high flying cranes. How the incident of the satanic verses exposes Muhammad as an accursed prophet. All right. Let's go here. We were sailing along on a moonlight bay. Put in Mursal. Auzubillahi Muhammad Rajim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Auzubillahi Muhammad Rajim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Go here. Fraud, Ali, satanic. You can put in satanic verses. It'll all come up. Auzubillahi Muhammad. Here you go. Let's do it right here. Okay, Sahih Mursal. All right. All right. I give you a list of chains that are Sahih Mursal, Mursal Sahih and Isnad. Now, what does that mean? You ready? Okay, what does that mean? Sahih means sound. Why is it Mursal? Mursal refers to a missing link. A Mursal Hadith means there is a name missing in the link. In this case, there is the name of the companion that's missing. Okay, please listen. Lend me your ears. Are you ready? I'm teaching you Islam so you can learn what a Mursal is. Okay. Mursal is, imagine Peter. Let's use John. John, Polycarp, Irenaeus. Okay. John, Polycarp, and Irenaeus. A Mursal chain would be, Irenaeus said, Polycarp told us Jesus Christ said the following. Irenaeus said that he heard from Polycarp that Jesus Christ said the following. Now, here's the problem. Polycarp is not a companion of Jesus. He's not a disciple of Jesus. So when he told Irenaeus, this is what Jesus said, where did he get it from? Because he wasn't an eyewitness to Jesus. This is what's called a Mursal report, where the disciple of the apostle is mentioned, but the name of the apostle that told him the information is not given. See how that works? Mursal Hadith. Irenaeus said, I heard from Polycarp that Jesus said to do this. But wait, Irenaeus, Polycarp wasn't a companion of Jesus. How do you know what Jesus said? Well, because we know that Polycarp was trained by the apostles, and one of his teachers was John, and he's a man of integrity who did not lie, but died as a martyr for Christ, showing his integrity. We know that he got it from an eyewitness of Christ, even though the name's not given. This is known as Mursal. Sahih Mursal means every person in that chain is considered reliable, a man of integrity, not known for lying. So these are reports that are sahih, meaning all the people in the chain, men of integrity, not known for lying. They don't make things up. The only thing is that the name of the companion of Muhammad who would have taught the disciples of the companions the story is not mentioned. But because they're men of integrity, nonetheless, we trust that they got it from a companion of Muhammad, even though it's not mentioned. That's why it's Sahih Mursal. You understand now what that is? And there are scholars who will accept Sahih Mursal chains. Ibn Taymiyyah being one of them, and even Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, who was the commentator on Bukhari, admitted that there are Sahih chains narrating the satanic verses, which are Mursal reports. Okay? Please let me know you understand what a Sahih Mursal is. Sahih Mursal means that every person in the chain is reliable, known to be a man of integrity, will not lie, make things up. But the chain goes only to a disciple of a companion Muhammad. And in that chain, the disciple doesn't tell us which companion Muhammad told him. Zach, I got to see you, brother. Lord willing, my daughters are here. We're going to visit you, God willing. Do you understand that, right? So to give you the example from a Christian perspective, Irenaeus said, Polycarp told us Jesus commanded us to do this. But Irenaeus, Polycarp wasn't a companion of Jesus. So who told Polycarp this is what Jesus said? Well, Irenaeus doesn't mention the apostle. But because we know Irenaeus is a man of holiness, integrity, who willfully died as a holy martyr for Christ, he wouldn't lie. And we know Polycarp, a man of integrity, a holy servant of Christ, who was an eyewitness of the apostles, who died at the age of 86, willfully for Christ. We know he wouldn't lie and make up things. So when he said Jesus said it, he must have gotten it from an apostle. This is what a Sahih Mursal chain is. So don't let these Muslims lie to you. Don't let them deceive you. If they tell you they're all weak chains or fraudulent chains, they are lying to you, or they're ignorant and stupid. No, many of the chains are Sahih Mursal. And in these posts, thanks to Shahab Ahmed, I quoted the chains that he gave that are Sahih Mursal chains. In other words, it's as authentic as you can get from an Islamic perspective. This is as authentic as you can get from an Islamic perspective. Why do you think Ibn Taymiyyah, 700 years later, argued this event happened? Too many reports, too many chains for it to be fake. Right, Rumble? You got it in the beginning. Anyone confused and bored, or did you understand this? Especially you guys debating Muslims. All right. What makes the above narrative significant to our discussion is deemed a Sahih Mursal report. A narration in which the terms are reliable, but which doesn't go back to a companion Muhammad, but to one of their followers. What report? This one here. See, I gave you the ones that are Sahih. When the Messenger of God was in Mecca, he recited Qara to them. By the star when it sets, when he reached, have you considered Allat, Al-Uzza, Manat, the third, the other? He said, indeed, their intercession is to be hoped for. Shafah. The Messenger of God did this unmindfully. He wasn't being mindful. The mushrikun, in whose hearts there was sickness, met him and greeted him and were greatly pleased at it. He said to them, but that was from Satan. And God sent down, chapter 22, verse 52. And we have not sent before you a messenger or a prophet, but then when he, Tamana, Satan, something into his umniyah, then God removes that which Satan cast. Okay? Let's look at a few more reports that are Sahih Mursal. Okay, watch here. Let's find a few more. You got this? So here's another one. You ready? The messenger of God recited, Qara, have you considered Lat, Al-Uzza, Manat, the third, the other? And Satan cast unto his tongue. فَأَلْقَى الشَّيْطَانَ عَلَى لِسَانِهِ. Those are the high flying cranes, their intercessions to be hoped for. Okay? And the mushrikun were greatly pleased by this and said, he has mentioned our gods. So Gabriel came to him and said, recite to me, Iqra alaya, what I brought you. Okay, repeat what I said to you. And he recited, have you considered Lat, Al-Uzza, Manat, the third, the other? Those are the high-flying cranes, their intercession is so far. Now you see the problem here? Muhammad consciously repeated the praise of the goddesses. Are you catching this part? He consciously repeated back the words of Satan, knowing these are the words. That means he fully knew full well that he was reciting verses praising the goddesses, because he repeated them back. He said, I did not bring you this. This is from Satan. Bihada, hada, and al-shaytan. Or he said, this is from Satan. I did not bring you this. I didn't bring you these. So God sent down, we have not sent before you a messenger or a prophet, but that when he, Tamana, Satan cast something into his umniya to the end. Again, this is quoted from Tafsir of Ibn Mardawai, and then later Hadith collection, Mukhtara of Al-Diya Maqdisi. Okay. So what is the classification? It is Sahih by the criterion of Bukhari and Muslim. The criteria used by Bukhari Muslim, it is Sahih. See it? Tell her if she ever wants to go live with me and me answer questions, I will. You guys see this? Al-Suyuri also cited this from Ibn Mardawai. And look what he said, that the chain is made up of reliable transmitters. Sannat rijaluhu thiqat. Even Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani considered this one to be reliable. Okay, let me give you one more. Okay? Let me know if you're enjoying this thus far. We got at least another 30, 40 minutes. Okay. Here, this one comes from Al-Bazar, Al-Tabarani, and Ibn Mardawai, who I mentioned, Al-Ziya. And this is all a chain of trustworthy narrators. Thiqat. Thiqat means trustworthy, reliable. By the way of Sa'id ibn Jubair, and from whom? This one says Ibn Abbas. Now we have one that even mentions a companion, Ibn Abbas, that the Prophet recited the words of Surah An-Najm in the following manner. All right, have you then considered the Lat, the Uzza, the Manat, the third, the last? These are the lofty idols. Verily, their intercession is sought after. Mushrikeen became delighted on hearing this from Holy Prophet and said that their idols have also been mentioned in the Quran. Then Gabriel came and said to the Prophet, recite some revelation and Quran which I have brought. Now note that Muhammad recites the words means that he's mindful of these statements, that he's aware. He said, these are high-flying cranes. Their intercession is accepted, so he can't play stupid. Have you then considered the Lat, the Uzza, the Manat, the third, the last? These are the lofty idols. Verily, their intercession sought after. Jibreel said, I had not brought these words. These are from Satan. And then 2252 was sent down to comfort him. Damn, Gina. And Al-Suri can narrate similar versions that are similar to this with Sahih chains. We come with receipts, buddy. Even someone named Qadi Thana Ullah Panipati Uthmani, he had to admit in his commentary in chapter 2252, he doesn't believe in the satanic verses, but he had to admit, nonetheless, quote, he had to admit, quote, however, the tradition we previously mentioned from Sayyid ibn Jubair by Bazar ibn Mardawai and Tabarani, the version I just quoted, is indeed successive, mutawatir, and strong, qawi, it's strong. Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani has stated from the abundance of traditions reported, it is deemed that there is some truth in it. And this is what Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani himself said. However, various versions mean that the story has an origin, although there are two authentic versions. Damn, Gina. Damn. Damn. We got it now? Don't let them lie to you. That's weak. It's forged. It's not authentic. Lying. We were sailing along. Lying. I'll be lying. 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 Oh, were you lying? Oh, were you lying? You see? Oh, were you? Now that you're gone, I'll be lying, lying, lying. Oh, were you? You caught it? Just want you to see it. I'm going through it, showing you. Lying. Oh, were you? Lying. This one is a nice one. You ready for this one? Let me read at least one or two more. This one right here. Okay? Let me show you where it's from. Now that you're gone, I'll be lying. Okay, that report we're about to read, I want you to see who narrates it. Muhammad Mustafa al-Azami, Maghazi Rasul Allah li Urwa bin al-Zubair bin or bi Rawayat Abi Aswad anhu al-Nuskha al-Mustakhraja Maktab al-Tarbiyya. You get it? Narrated by these people, right? Let's read what it says here. I'll just read this one. Ready? Then those who had gone to Abyssinia the first time. Can you see the screen, by the way? You can see the screen, right? Now that you're all. You guys can see the screen? Okay. Large enough? Then those who had gone to Abyssinia the first time returned before the departure of Ja'far bin Abi Talib. A group of Muslims sought asylum in Abyssinia, Christian nation, and came back. Why did they come back? This is when God sent down the surah in which he states, by the star when it sets. Surah An-Najm, chapter 50. The Mushrikun had said, if only this man would speak favorably of our gods, we would secure him. See? Speak good about our gods, we will protect you and fight for you. He does not speak of any of the Jews and Christians who oppose his religion with the abuse and invective with which he speaks of our gods. He abuses us worse than Jews and Christians. When God sent down the surah in which he mentions by the star, Muhammad, recited, have you considered Alat, Al-Uzza, Manat, the third, the other? At this point, Satan cast into it a mention of the evil ones, and he said, indeed, they are high flying cranes, and indeed their intercession is to be hoped for. That was the rhyming prose of Satan. Notice, Satan inspired Muhammad with his rhyme and his prose, with his poetry. Those two phrases became lodged in the heart of every mushrik. They heard it. Their tongues were debased by them. They rejoiced at them. They were elated that he said this. Look what they said. Muhammad has returned to his original religion and the religion of his tribe. Wow. Talk about an embarrassment. Wow. As for the mushrikun, their minds were set at ease in regard to the Prophet's command when they heard what Satan had cast into the umniya, desires, words of the Prophet. Satan told them that the Messenger of God had recited them when in sajda, so they made the sajda in veneration of their gods. So they didn't know it was Satan who had Muhammad, duped them into thinking their gods are acceptable, and Muhammad was oblivious. The Messenger of God was greatly distressed by this. In the evening, Gabriel came to him. He complained. Muhammad complained to him. So Gabriel ordered him to recite, and he recited to him. When he reached them, the satanic verses, or when Gabriel heard Samia, the satanic verses, Gabriel, now watch how bad it gets. Muhammad committed shirk, the one sin Allah won't forgive. Associating gods with Allah. Look, he says it with his own tongue. Gabriel absolved himself of responsibility for them and said, God, protect me from these. My Lord did not send them down. I didn't bring them to you, nor your Lord command me with them. Now look what Muhammad said. Watch the burial. When the Messenger of God saw this, he was greatly disturbed. I have obeyed Satan and spoken his words, and he became a partner. He has become a partner in God's matter with me. He says, I made Satan a partner. Wa sharika ni fi amr Allah. Here's that word shirk. I committed shirk by making Satan Allah's partner in inspiring me with his words. He just admitted he committed shirk. You see the word wa sharikani fi amr Allah. I made Satan Allah's partner by reciting the words of Satan as if they're Quran. Exactly, you took the words out of my mouth. Now, guys, what does this tell you? Satan is just as powerful as Allah. Do you know why? Because the Quran says, if you bring mankind and jinn together, none of them can produce the like of the Quran. Well, according to the Quran, Satan is a jinn. And he produced verses that were identical to the Quran that Muhammad couldn't even tell the difference. Damn, Muhammad. Damn. And here are all the people that reported this in the chains. And what does Tafsir Dur al-Manthur say about this particular event? Al-Bazar, Tabarani, Ibn Ar-Mardawi, which I already narrated, through a chain of all trustworthy narrators. So here's a Sahih version, which I read earlier. Wow. I have made Satan a partner with Allah. Now we got a problem. See, all the articles are there. Praise the Lord Jesus Christ. His brother saved them. Pray this channel doesn't get deleted, the websites. Download them. Now watch the implication. Number one. You ready? The implication? Let's go. Wait, what did I just do? Hold on. I thought I just had the article here. Oh, I did, because I'm too stupid. Let's go back here. It's also on my website. So if you go to the website, the article is here. The Prophet of Shirk strikes yet again. Number one, we have a problem, Houston. What's the problem? Let's see what the problem is. 1788 of the Quran, and then 1850. I'm going to enlarge it. Just be patient. Okay, now watch. You ready? Old news, Terrence. Don't change the subject. We're going to get you out of here, brother. Say, if the whole of mankind and jinns, notice, even genies, if you brought them with all mankind to gather together to produce the like of this Quran, they could not produce the like thereof, even if they backed up each other with help and support. Now, did you catch it? If you bring all the jinns, all humans, none of them can produce something like the Quran. And then the Quran tells us that Satan, Iblis, is a jinn, a genie. 1788, 1850. Behold, we said to the angels, bow down to Adam. They bowed down except Iblis. He was one of the jinns, and he broke the command of his Lord. Will ye then take him and his progeny as protectors rather than me? And they are enemies to you. Evil would be the exchange for the wrongdoers. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. If no jinn is able to produce the like of the Quran, and all of jinn and mankind get together, they'll fail. How the hell did Satan produce verses with rhyme and prose identical to the Quran that even Muhammad, his companions, and the pagans couldn't tell the difference? How did Satan do that? How was Satan able to do that? Help me out. Secondly, let me shock you a little more, make you laugh. Secondly, how can a Muslim now guarantee you? How can a Muslim now guarantee that every time that Gabriel appeared, it wasn't Satan? What do I mean? Let me explain to you Satan's mastermind. How can a Muslim assure you that Satan appeared as Gabriel and gave him the Quran verses, and then to bring Muhammad to the point of utter destruction and keep him off his scent, he then inspired him to recite verses praising the pagan goddesses, and then reappeared as Gabriel saying, that's not from me, that's from Satan, in order to make Muhammad have no doubt that the real Gabriel was coming to him. You see the mastermind? Let me repeat what I'm saying. How can a Muslim guarantee that it wasn't Satan from the beginning that appeared to Muhammad as Gabriel, who gave him all the verses of the Quran, and in order to confirm and convince Muhammad he wasn't deceived, throw a monkey wrench, cause Muhammad to recite verses praising the pagan goddesses, then reappear as Gabriel saying, what did you do? That's not from me. That's from Satan. In other words, I'm not Satan. So don't be shaken in your faith. I'm the real McCoy. In order to then deceive him that it was Gabriel through and through. You see the deception? Once you admit he can be deceived into reciting the verses, the prose, the rhyme of Satan, and those words are identical to the Quran, so he couldn't tell them apart, which means that Satan can produce the Quran, you have no way of now guaranteeing us that it wasn't Satan appearing as Gabriel from the beginning, claiming to be Gabriel, giving him these words with the prose and the rhyme, then in order to convince him that he wasn't Satan but Gabriel, have him recite words praising idols, then coming back as Gabriel saying, shame on you, I didn't say that. You got it now? How deep the rabbit hole goes? And if you really want to laugh, do you know the Muslim sources admit that there was an evil genie, a demon that would torment Muhammad, attach himself to Muhammad, called Al-Abyad, the white one, who looked like Gabriel, which is why when the demon showed up, he couldn't tell the difference because he looked like Gabriel. So Gabriel had to come and tell him, that's not me, that's your genie, that evil demon appearing as me. Did you guys know that? So to make it even more hilarious, I don't know if Yeshua's here, the tradition says there was an evil genie, a demon, that appeared as Gabriel, called Al-Abyad, the white one, and Muhammad couldn't tell him apart from the real Gabriel, and the real Gabriel had to come and say, hey, that's not me, man, that's Al-Abyad. Did you guys catch that? Confirming what I just said, that even the Muslim sources say Satan can appear as Gabriel here, Abyad. Let's bring it up. Muhammad's white devil. Yeah, that's what, the black one, yeah. Guys, let me know if you're understanding the point. Here it is. Al-Abyad, the Muslim sources. And guess who inspired Muhammad to recite the satanic verses? One narration says it was Al-Abyad. Al-Abyad. Did you know that? And I give you the source where Muhammad actually thought he was possessed of a genie, of a devil, and wanted to kill himself. Okay, let's go through this. Because this genie manhandled him, spiritually molested him, causing him to tremble with terror and horror and end his life. Okay, there it goes. All the receipts. Now, the Messenger of Allah said to Khadija when in seclusion, I hear someone calling and saying, oh Muhammad, and I fear that is one of the jinns, Al-Sirat Al-Halabiyah. So he's even telling you, I think I'm demonized. I think demons are appearing to me. And he was right. He was right. See? Let's go here. Save these articles. Here you go. Are you enjoying the series? Protestant believer? Watch here. Who's Al-Abyad? Aziz Al-Azmi, the emergence of Islam in late antiquity, Allah and his people, page 208. As the moment, he also had a familiar. You know how they say you have like familiar spirits attached to you? Well, here it says he had a familiar, right? A muse. Identified as Al-Ra'i, or alternatively the benign Al-Abyad, who was made by Muslim traditions to be associated with all the prophets, who was said to have been pushed aside physically by Gabriel when he contrived to appear in Gabriel's form, a story that may betoken the evolution of Muhammad's conception and inspiration discussed later. Muhammad's panegyrist, Hassan bin Thabit, and I have an article on him, that Hassan also had a genie that appeared to him and inspired him, was himself inspired by a demon in terrible form of a silat, who during his childhood prophesied that he'd become a great prophet, and Hassan himself asserted that the jinn do weave poetry. Did you see? Jinn inspire prose and poetry like the Quran. Hassan bin Thabit claims, like Muhammad, a spirit would come to him and attach himself to Hassan and inspire him with his poetry. And according to Muhammad, Hassan was actually inspired by Gabriel. See, that would be a term for a demon, buddy. Do you see how deep the rabbit hole goes? Hassan bin Thabit was Muhammad's poet. Muhammad would tell Hassan, lampoon my enemies in poetry, mock them. According to Muhammad, Hassan would write or recite poetry because Gabriel was inspiring him, and other narrations, the Holy Spirit. But according to the Muslim sources, Hassan claims there was a genie attached to him who would inspire him with his poetry. You caught it? I'll retitle it The Satanic Verses. I'll show you that article, right? We have already seen that Muhammad had a familiar Karen, that's what they call it, a Karen or Karin, called Al-Abyad. And according to Islam, everyone has a Karen. All of you have a Karen, Karen. That is a demon attached to you, called Al-Abyad, even Muhammad. And the Quran does state that every man has a familiar spirit, a muse, who will bear witness to his or her deeds at the end of time. The Prophet is also said, on the authority of Aisha, to have told her that he had a shaitan who, with the help of God, became a Muslim. So what a coincidence. Surprise, David. Muhammad's shaitan, his Karen, his Karin, became Muslim. Gee. Surprise, David. All right. With the help of God, became on poetic evidence, a good Karen or Karin can also reform the character of a man. And I give you the verse where it says all of us have a Karen in our life. I had one for 10 years, Mike Tyson. Right? Karinen, right? An evil comrade. All right, but wait. This Karens of Muhammad, his familiar spirit, what appearance would he take? Mafatih al-Ghayyib, volume 23, page 240. It is reported from Atta that Ibn Abbas said, a devil called Al-Abyad came to the Prophet in the form of Gabriel. Now, buddy, if you're admitting to me, yeah, Karen. If you're admitting to me that Muhammad had a Satan, a demon, that would look like Gabriel, how the hell are you going to convince me that he saw the real Gabriel at all? How are you guys going to convince me of that? How are you going to convince me of that? And the Prophet recited them. So notice who gave Muhammad the satanic verses? Al-Abyad, the Karin, who appeared to him as Gabriel. He gave him the satanic verses. So he thought it was from Gabriel. When the pagans heard that it pleased them, thereupon Gabriel came and asked him to rehearse the revelation to him. Yep, typo here, it doesn't matter. When he reached these words, Gabriel said, I did not bring you these words. Someone came to me in your form and cast these words on my tongue. Do you see it? Someone came looking like you. Well, how the hell do you know that you're looking at the real Gabriel now? Shams al-Din al-Qurtubi, he writes, Jami al-Ahkam al-Qurtubi, man, volume 8, page 37. Al-Abyad, he was a companion of the prophets and the one who intended to reach to the prophet in the form of Gabriel to whisper to him in the garb of revelation. However, Gabriel intervened and pushed Al-Abyad with his hand, throwing him to the farthest corner of India. Really? And you want us to believe that? Again, Qurtubi, volume 12, page 84. By the demon called Al-Abyad, the white one, he was referring to the one that used to come to the prophet in the form of Gabriel, wanting to seduce him. How many more do you want me to give you? Tafsir Muqattal bin Sulaiman, one of the oldest commentaries. When the prophet was sent, Iblis said, who is this? Who is for this prophet who has emerged from the land of Tihamma? And a shaitan called Al-Abyad, who was a companion, another typo, damn it. Companion of the prophets, Sahib al-Anbiya, said, I am for him. Doesn't matter, I don't care if it's typos. So he came to the prophet, found him in the house of Al-Saffa. When he turned, Al-Abyad stood up in the form of Gabriel, fi surat Jibreel, to communicate to him and inspire him. Li uhyi ya ilayhi. So Gabriel came down, put his hand between him and the prophet and pushed him, Al-Abyad, gently. By this, he was thrust away from Mecca, landed in the furthest parts of India. And you believe that story? Who gave Muhammad his satanic verses? Here you go. Shahab Ahmed, Before Orthodoxy, the Satanic Verses of Islam, pages 216, 217, that book I told you about. So, who gave Muhammad the Satanic Verses? Al-Abyad. How? By appearing as Gabriel. His words, we have not sent before you a messenger or a prophet, but that when he, Tamana, Satan cast something into his umniya, meaning into his recitation. That was because a Satan called Al-Abyad, Shaitanan, Yuqul lahu Al-Abyad, had come to the Prophet in the form of Gabriel, fi Surah Jibreel, while the Prophet was reciting Surah Al-Najm. And when he reached Intaha ila, have you seen Al-Uzza? This Al-Abyad who looked like Gabriel, so that means Muhammad even saw what he thought was Gabriel, telling him praise these goddesses. He cast in the Prophet's recitation. Indeed, they're the high Ghananiqa, and indeed their intercessions to be hoped for. See that? Because now, capiche? So you just destroyed Islam, folks. You just destroyed Islam. How can you convince non-Muslims the Gabriel that appeared wasn't Satan or a demon to confuse Muhammad? How? And what are you going to do with Muhammad reciting verses from Satan, committing shirk, making Satan a partner with Allah, because he couldn't tell the difference between Satan's prose and rhyme from Allah's, showing that Satan can imitate the Quran to the point that he can have Muhammad commit shirk. What are you going to do with that? But brethren, that's over with. Now you see why this revealed. The other problem, so we can then wrap it up. The other problem. This is a lie from the pit of hell. You will not find a single verse in the Quran where it says Moses, Abraham, or Jesus recited verses from Satan because they're deceived into thinking those verses from God. This is a lie. Let alone the Holy Bible. So here's my challenge to the Mohammedans. Show me single verse in your Quran, which you believe, and show me from God's true word, the Holy Bible, any true prophet, any true apostle being duped into reciting revelations from Satan because Satan appeared to them as Gabriel or Michael, getting the better of them and cause him to fall into idolatry. It doesn't exist. But then it gets worse, because the Quran says, and the Muslim tradition says, that Mary and Jesus have never been touched by Satan, never been tainted by Satan, never been corrupted by Satan, and they remain pure and sinless. Therefore, this is a lie from the pit of hell. Because if this is true, all prophets or messengers were deceived by Satan into reciting his verses, then we got a problem, because the Quran and Islamic sources say Jesus and Mary, pure, sinless, perfect, and Satan was not able to touch them, which means either we have a contradiction, this is a lie, or Muhammad now ends up proving Jesus and Mary are not merely human, they must be more than humans, more than angels. Then what are they? Divine beings? We'll do that in part 2, because it's already over 3 hours. I'm going to go into that dilemma in part 2, Lord willing. And I may do part 2 tonight. Okay? Maybe. Because it's already over 3 hours. We had a good crowd. May the Lord Jesus keep our numbers strong and steady, of quality over quantity. Right? A lot of stuff, huh? Islam is the easiest religion to destroy, because Muhammad, as David Wood says, is the most obvious false prophet in the world. And he's in hell, destroyed, crushed by the feet of Jesus Christ. Pray for me, guys. You prayer warriors.